You are never supposed to weld downhill.
I'd be willing to bet that several of you guys have walked directly under one of my downhill welds in your lifetime. Stay tuned, I'll tell you what that's all about. Hi guys, first off, let's start this video with a quick tip on how to find the center of a piece of metal. This is 6 foot long. If you don't want to measure it, it's not critical, you're just trying to split it in half roughly. All you gotta do is just balance it on your finger until it is centered like that. Just keep trying to chase it. So that's gonna be pretty close right there. Let's measure it and see how close that was. Off by a little bit over a 1/16, not too bad. Get yourself some fine point Sharpies like these so you can accurately measure stuff, instead of having a big fat wore out tip like that. You want really crisp lines. If you start with something accurate, it's going to help you handle something accurate. And if you're cutting with a cutoff wheel, the thinner, the more accurate and quicker they are, but it's a trade-off. They wear out quicker and they're more susceptible to chipping. And if you're using a vise, don't hang the part out because it's going to, flex around and shatter, choke it up closer to the jaws. And you can use these deeper edges if you're light and careful with it, but you don't want to do too much side grinding with them, because if you side grind, you can thin these out too much, then they might explode on you, so be mindful of that. It'd be ideal to have 2 grinders, one set up with a cutoff wheel and one with a, like a flap disc or just a normal grinding disc to deburr stuff, but you can get by with this. This steel's been sitting out in the weather, getting rust on it, so to make sure you got a better weld, the best weld possible, get rid of this, it could create porosity. Then if you plan on burning through to the backside, make sure to get a little bit of the backside where the weld puddle is going to liquefy, because that'll pull rust all the way from the back up to the front too. When you're welding long parts, any process and any material, you're going to want to tack weld it in several spots. Because when you start welding parts, they get hot and expand. So if you just start welding along, this end over here is going to start growing and create a gap and then ruin your part. And then if you just do the ends only, this part's likely going to get hotter than the bottom or vice versa, depending on how you're doing it. And then one will like start expanding away from the other. And so on this part, this example, I'm going to tack weld it on the back side and then flip it over and do the weld on the front side. And if you can, I recommend tacking the back side, because if you have tack welds, every 6 inches or whatever you're going to do, you have to put your final weld over those humps, and that creates spots for leaks and then, lack of perfect fusion. So it's just, it's kind of an eyesore if you're wanting to make the best parts possible. So yeah, put the tacks on the back side when you can. So I'm going to hold the part down nice and tight. Then I'm using my thumb to increase my accuracy, so you're not just wobbling around, you're like 9 inches away from the tip if you're just using this hand, shaking around. Or if your other hand's not free, to guide the nozzle, you can just rest it down on something to keep it steady. And in this video, I'm using the Prime Weld MIG 285. I've been really happy with this machine so far. If you decide you want to order any Prime Weld machine, you can use the code 6061 to save you a few bucks and help me out making these videos. Order directly from their website. I'll leave a link below. And this is 1/8 inch thick steel, and I'm using .030 wire. And so I'm starting off on their chart. I don't MIG weld much anymore, so I'm not, as proficient as I am at TIG welding, but I'm going to start here, but I think I'm going to have to modify these a little bit because these are, the charts are never 100% perfect because it depends on what type of weld you're doing and what position. So I'm thinking I might have to turn my wire speed down just a little bit so it doesn't start, like cold lapping over and getting too much wire and falling as I'm going downhill. Sorry, I'm kind of all over the place giving you guys advice on this video, just trying to give you as much insight as I can, tell you what I'm thinking as I'm going. So on the back side, if you put tacks too hot, they can contract and then open up a gap on the front side, but this is looking pretty good, so be mindful of that. I'm going to tack the front too a little bit on, each end. Really happy with how smooth this machine starts up for, especially for tack welding. Alright, I got it clamped here vertical in the vise. I'm going to just do a few little practice runs on the back side to make sure I got the voltage and wire speed tuned in the way I want them. So on this part, since it's not that wide, I can't really, normally I use my pinky a lot. TIG welding, I don't know, you guys probably a lot of you guys have probably noticed this, but I use my pinky as a brace to help me stabilize whatever I'm welding. But there's not enough metal out here to do that. So I'm going to try wrap, there's no rough edges. Make sure there's no rough edges back here to hook on your gloves. I'm going to wrap around and then use my thumb here. Kind of like, I don't know if any of you guys shoot billiards, but it's kind of like anchoring a pool cue stick. Keep it steady. So do that and then just guide my way down like that. That's looking pretty good. I'm not getting any overlap, where I can see it fusing in and it's not, the weld bead's not like getting ahead of me and not fusing in, lapping over cold. That's burning in really good. For what I'm trying to achieve though in this video, that was a little bit hot. That's gonna make it stronger, but I don't want to put that much heat into this part. I'll explain that later. So I'm turning the machine down from 17.9 volts. I'm going to go down to 17.5 and leave the wire speed the same it was. Give that a shot. Still a little bit too hot. So now I'm down to 16.5 volts and 270 inches per minute on the wire feed. Okay, I'm liking that. See how I'm able to stay in off the edge a little bit better? It's not trying to burn out. And it still sounds like it's sizzling along good. There's no spatter. So I'm going to run with that. And where this is 1/8 inch thick, it's thick enough I can just put the nozzle in here and just drag it straight down. That's like how you get taught in 3rd grade how to draw a straight line. Use a ruler, don't get back and freehand it. Let's take a quick break and analyze these welds for a sec before I turn it over and do the other side. So at first it was looking pretty decent. A little bit too hot. You can see right here where it started getting a little bit fatter and starting creeping out to the edge. And then right here, the part was warmed up, so it was, substantially too hot, getting out of control and coming over. And then I turned it down. And right here, that's not good. That little area right there, see how it's kind of cold lapping? It's not fusing in good. But once I got going nice and steady, that's perfect how I want it. A little bit of weld crown. And for you beginners that don't know what I mean by crown, you got, like roads, they have crown in them. The hump up, like convex, not concave. So if you're looking at this, if you were to cut it and look straight down the weld, you got your bottom piece here, then your top piece lapped on it. So you want to try to get the weld joint crowned up like that, so the thickness of it is at least as thick as the sheet metal you're welding. You don't want it, curled in like this where it's going to be a lot thinner, because it's going to want to split right here in the center. Hopefully that makes sense. Get more material build up on it. Okay, let's see how this goes. See how far I can get down without botching it. Like I said, I haven't done much MIG welding for quite a while. Kind of squirrely. Maybe a little less wire. It's kind of kicking a hair. That part's looking okay. Man, this camera is not liking to focus lately. I think it's been dropped on its head one too many times. Bottom half of this turned out really good once I remembered what the heck I was doing. Kind of embarrassed to even show you the top half, but I guess we'll keep it real. I should have got up higher so I wasn't all squirrely and I could have seen what I was doing better. Got going real good from the about halfway point down though. Okay, let's cut it apart and check it out. And one of the most valuable pieces of advice I can give you is be honest with yourself, Like I cut my favorite part off of it. You want to critique yourself, be your worst critic. Like right here is pretty crappy looking up top where I wasn't up close and steady enough. So I'm going to cut this part off too and check it out. Okay, I'm going to split apart the better looking one first, see how strong that is. Downhill welds aren't the strongest, but that's pretty dang strong. Like I said earlier in the video, I'll explain what I was building, you know, younger in my career, where there were several reasons we did downhill welds. So that did better than I expected it to. I thought it was going to break right down here, you know, in this little corner, but it broke back on the sheet. You know, the sheet was probably, I'm guessing, to there, you know, and then it snapped right along that top edge of the weld. Okay, let's do that first one that I wasn't too happy about with how irregular I was welding at the top before I got the hang of it. And I'm not much into the cut and etch deal, you know, I'm more into cut it, look at it, and try to destroy it. That's how you really tell how strong something is, not just by looking at it and analyzing it. Just because something looks good doesn't mean it is good, right? And I had to trim this one down shorter because it had a weld on the back side. That's why I'm not bending it the exact same way I did that first one. Pretty dang strong though. I'm not going easy on it. Trying to fake it for the camera. That one might even be hanging on better than the prettier looking weld. So if you ever get anybody telling you you're not supposed to weld downhill, tell them to shut it. One downfall of downhill welding is it's kind of tricky to get a proper restart tied in. But like this one, you know, it's off a little bit to one side, but some parts need like a full seal, you know. So this first one, I would run it a little long, kind of thin, you know, and then start well above it and make sure you get nice and hot before you tie back in. This top one right here probably came down, I don't know, like right here. So I came back on it. Yeah, it's gobbed up a little bit, but I wanted to ensure that that creates a seal. So there's several benefits to doing downhill welds. There's less heat input into the part if you're wanting to not warp a long sheet metal part. And then like this, you can see there's no spatter on it. Compared to welds, you know, if you're down like this, the balls will land on it and stick to it more, whereas everything just hits it and falls off. And then it's a little bit faster too. Once you get the hang of it, it's pretty dang easy too. But it's not going to be as strong as, you know, like a flat weld or a little bit of an uphill, because you don't have the time to cut in and fuse it in really deep. Story time now. So about 18 years ago, you know, I don't know if you guys know what a jetway roof is. So you got your big commercial jet here, and then you got the airport terminal, and then the jetway is the part that you walk out down the little hallway, and then it goes over and gets you into the airplane. So 18 years ago roughly, I used to weld the roofs on these things, and there's this pivoting part right here, I don't know, like 8 or 10 feet wide, whatever, and it needed sheet metal about this thick, maybe a hair thinner, on the whole top of it. And we had to put a weld down it, because, you know, there was a piece over here and then this piece, and we had to tie those together. So we would crane these things up in the shops. We'd stand on a ladder, so this thing's hanging here, and then just get up as high as we could and weld downhill and try to minimize the restarts. So standing them up like that and going downhill was the best way that we could figure out how to minimize distortion, you know. If you weld it flat, you started getting these waves in it. And I think I got to the point where when I was doing it really good, I could do it in two restarts and get all the way to the bottom. And then we'd lay them back down flat. Yeah, so I welded several of these up. I think the ones I welded up went to the Salt Lake Airport, maybe Denver, a couple there, I can't remember. But yeah, when you walk down this and there's that pivot point, I think there's like a little controller here for them to steer this and get it exactly where it needs to be height-wise and angle-wise. this was the part that I welded. So a lot of you guys probably walked right under a weld of mine. Thanks for watching. Hopefully this video was helpful and entertaining. Let me know.